how the frontman and Ilnam would survive every game in Squid Game. Welcome to Movie Vault. I saw that many of you appreciated my short video about how the frontman would survive every game, so I decided to follow up with a much more in-depth breakdown, since there was still some confusion about it. I'll be going over every single game, explaining exactly how the frontman managed to ensure his safety, while also discussing how Ilnam would survive each game as well. By the end of this video, you'll see that neither of them were in any real danger at any point during the competition. Let's start by analyzing how the frontman secured his survival throughout the games. The frontman strategy, how he was never in danger. Game 1, red light, green light. The first game was red light, green light, and this was the easiest one for the frontman to avoid. Why? Because he didn't even participate. Instead, we saw him watching from his private chambers, observing the chaos unfold as players were eliminated one by one. This was a clever move because, at this stage, there were 455 other players. The majority of them were strangers who had never met before, which meant that nobody would really notice or question his absence. People were too busy trying to survive to wonder why one random guy wasn't on the field. However, here's the interesting part. I don't believe the frontman originally intended to enter the games at all. His only reason for joining was to disrupt Gi-hun's strategy, which had been significantly reducing the number of deaths compared to the first season's games. The frontman knew that if things continued that way, the games wouldn't be as entertaining as before, and that was unacceptable. This is reinforced by the Season 1 finale, where we got a glimpse of a conversation between the frontman and Ilnam. The frontman asked Ilnam why he would risk his life by joining the games, and Ilnam responded that it was simply more fun to play rather than just watch. However, the frontman never expressed the same sentiment. If he had truly entered the games for fun, like Ilnam did, he would have participated in red light, green light from the start. But he didn't. Game 2. Dalgona. Challenge. Now, moving on to the second game, the Honeycomb Challenge. Once again, the frontman ensured his safety, but this time in a much more subtle way. His team conveniently went last, even though they were positioned in the middle of the crowd when they were choosing shapes. This is important because, if we look closely, we can see that his group was surrounded on all sides, left, right, front, and back. This means that their turn being last wasn't a coincidence. It was carefully planned. By going last, the frontman was able to manipulate the situation. If his team lost, the guards would have waited until the other team had left the playing area before eliminating his teammates. But the crucial detail here is that the guards wouldn't have killed him. Instead, they would have left him alive, potentially imprisoning Gi-hun and forcing him to watch the rest of the games unfold as psychological torture. This is a key detail because it reveals that the frontman had multiple fail-safe options. Even if he were in a situation where he should have been eliminated, he had ways to ensure his survival. Game 3, Tug of War. The Tug of War game was yet another instance where the frontman manipulated the events in his favor. This was arguably one of the most dangerous games because survival depended on teamwork and physical strength. However, the frontman already had a strategy in place. We can see that when his team's turn arrived, there was only one other team left. This means that if his team lost, the guards would have eliminated his teammates, but left him alive. Even if things had somehow gone wrong, I believe the frontman had another backup plan. He could have faked an injury, making it seem like he was too weak to compete. The guards could have then removed him from the competition under the guise of a medical emergency, secretly escorting him back to safety. Game 4, Marbles. The Marbles game was perhaps the easiest for the frontman to manipulate in his favor. The chaos created during the pairing phase worked to his advantage. When players were scrambling to find partners, he simply separated from Gi-hun and found an empty room where he could hide and wait. We can see that when the required team size was announced, he sacrificed himself, telling Gi-hun to find another teammate. As soon as Gi-hun and his friends started running toward the chambers, the front man disappeared. This made it clear that he had intentionally isolated himself to ensure his survival. When he later entered a room with another player, he immediately killed them. But this wasn't just to stay in the game. It was part of his psychological warfare. He wanted to gain the trust of Junbai, only to betray him later in front of Gi-hun, completely breaking his spirit. Once again, this game posed no real threat to the frontman. The special game, Nighttime Massacre. If you're wondering how the frontman would survive the special game, the brutal free-for-all that took place overnight, the answer is simple. The guards. The guards were stationed outside, monitoring the game and waiting for confirmation to intervene. If the frontman had been targeted, they would have stepped in immediately, stopping the attack before it could even happen. Plus, the control room had night vision cameras capable of detecting heat signatures, meaning that the staff was constantly tracking his location. No one could sneak up on him without the guards knowing. Furthermore, no one would have dared to attack him. By this point, he had already demonstrated his strength when he defeated two of the most physically imposing players. There were much easier targets, such as the elderly woman, which is why no one bothered going after him. This is another key distinction between Il-nam and the frontman. Il-nam was genuinely at risk during this game, whereas the frontman was never in any real danger. Il-nam's strategy, how he survived every game. Now that we've covered how the frontman ensured his survival, let's talk about Il-nam. Unlike the frontman, Il-nam actually participated in the games. However, he was never in real danger because the staff made sure he wouldn't die. Red light, green light, the doll was programmed not to scan Il-nam, meaning he could move freely without risk. Honeycomb, even if he broke his shape, the guards would have let it slide. He could have hidden the broken piece inside the box, and no one would have noticed. Tug of war, his shackle wasn't locked. If his team lost, he could have released the rope and avoided being dragged down. Nighttime massacre. The guards were closely monitoring him, prepared to intervene if necessary. However, the glass bridge game was too dangerous for him to manipulate, which is why he conveniently exited the competition before it began. Final thoughts. In conclusion, neither the frontman nor Il-nam were ever in real danger. The frontman manipulated every situation to ensure his survival, while Il-nam had the full protection of the guards. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more Squid Game deep dives, be sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more content here to Movie Vault.